Hey guys, today we are driving the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. I have been super excited to get behind the wheel of this. We have 601 horsepower, or 641 horsepower with NGB boost, a 221-mile electric driving range, and just one of the highest performance EV platforms ever developed. We're going to be doing a street drive today, talking about what this has been like to live with this week. This is a beast and just an absolute monster on a racetrack. We haven't taken this on a racetrack yet. We will at some point, but that isn't happening probably this year. Charlie did go to the launch of this vehicle out in California and took it out around Laguna Seca for a few laps. So go check out that video if you're interested in seeing some track driving footage of this. But let's talk about what this has been like to live with this week, because this is an interesting car. It costs a little over $68,000. It still has the same 800-volt charging architecture that the Hyundai Ioniq has, so it can charge from 10 to 80% in about 18 minutes with a DC fast charger. It's a little bit wider, lower, higher performance. We've got Pirelli P0 tires and two 75/35 R21s. Very high performance brakes. This is basically an electric car that is intended to be track ready. We spent some time last year in the Kia EV6 GT. It was a little bit soft, kind of sloppy around corners, had a lot of body roll, but it still was a lot of fun. It had a drift mode, just like this does, except it pretty much immediately delaminated the tires that it was riding on in that drift mode. And I assume the same thing would probably happen here, just because this does still weigh, I think, around 4,860 pounds. So it's lighter than a lot of the competition, like the Mustang Mach-E GT, but it's still a heavy brute, and even though it doesn't feel it, there's some physics going on here. So let's start in the back. This is pretty much a regular old Ioniq everywhere else. You've got tons of space in the trunk. It's just a big hatchback. Unfortunately this week, this Ioniq 5N has a pretty bad rear hatch rattle, and there is a service bulletin out on that. It's been a problem with the Ioniq 5 for a while. It's been a problem with Hyundai and Kia vehicles for a while. I've been complaining about hatch rattle since the Stinger came out in 2018, so not sure why Hyundai hasn't fixed that yet, but you will notice it in the drive. It is very prevalent. Charge port, very nice. Funky door handles, but they do have kind of a little grippy spot on the inside, so these are a little bit easier to grab onto than some of the other competitors that do the same design. Tons of room in the back seat, lots of headroom. Excuse my son's footprints back here. Had a couple car seats back in here earlier this week. We do get an adjustable backrest. That's really nice. Climate vents, blue LED surrounds on the speaker grills, racing stripes right here. Yeah, this is a really special interior. I like the steering wheel design. And there's a whole lot going on with the drive modes in this car. We'll get into that in a little bit. Nice, supportive, well-bolstered seats. Good storage organization here too. Oops, I have child-locked myself in the back seat. Here we go. And then this is painted in Performance Blue Matte, which is the only option on this car. Love the way this looks. This front grille here is just so menacing. Such a cool design element. This is really a head turner in this color. Pirelli P0 specifically developed for this car. See the Hyundai N right there. Noise canceling foam inside the tire as well. Peek at the front trunk. Well, I guess there isn't really a front trunk. It's just a bunch of running gear. That's fine. I'm okay with that. All right. Here's where everything happens. So, let's go into our N modes here. You have a lot of control, and the drive modes are a bit messy in this car, but once you live with it, you can kind of get familiarized with what's going on. You have N Custom 1, which you can set to whatever you like. Get your motor settings, and then your N active sound, which is basically just fake engine noise. So N Custom 1 is silent, N Custom 2 has active sound. And you will hear that when we go for a drive. Let's turn that on. You can see there's simulated engine. You can give it some revs. You can bounce off a rev limiter. I'm going to say this. This engine sound is a bit of a gimmick. I think it could sound a little bit better, but I'm really going to applaud Hyundai and give them credit where credit is due for pushing the boundaries, pushing the envelope, and trying something new to kind of give us this almost very convincing engine gearbox feel from an electric car. This has a simulated 8-speed transmission. You can hit a red line, it'll stop accelerating. It'll accelerate slower and lower RPMs and faster and higher RPMs. You'll feel shift points. It's all pretty well-developed stuff. We'll experience what that's like to drive here in a little bit. But first, let's go over some of these settings, because there's a lot to talk about here. First of all, you can control your torque distribution from front to rear. How cool is that? Wow. So you can make this more front-wheel driven. You can make it more rear-wheel driven. There's lots of information about what you can do, what you can't do. You pretty much have to adjust all this stuff when you're parked, and there's very specific parameters required to do some of these things, like you have to turn this on, and then you can adjust it, and then you have to turn off ESC. It'd be nice if the car just kind of figured all this stuff out for you. There's N race mode, N drift optimizer, N battery. You can put it in a track and a drag mode. You can see your battery temperature over here like you do in other N products, except with oil temp and stuff. You can go in and change your engine sound. That sounds terrible. It's very futuristic. I kind of like ignition. But I also just kind of like it off too. So there's launch control, other performance options. You can select the level of road grip that you have. You can change the volume of the engine sound. Right now we're kind of in a mid setting. You can set it to make engine sound outside the car with exterior speakers. Look at that. That's pretty wild. There's battery preconditioning for the drag course, for the racetrack. Supposedly, you can just kind of track this all day long, charge it in between sessions, and the battery management should do just a fine job. And I have no doubt about that, because the EV6 GT performed flawlessly on track. It just delaminated a tire immediately in drift mode. I don't think you have a whole lot to worry about with this Ioniq 5N if you are going to be taking it to the racetrack. I imagine, though, most owners won't. So that's why we're doing a street drive today to talk about what this is like to live with on a regular basis. Let's not delay anymore. The rest of this is all Ioniq 5. You've got the storage here in the middle. It's all very practical. It's comfortable. It's spacious. I have loads of headroom, legroom, places to stretch out. It's a fantastic cabin. I love the physical controls. You've got buttons for everything, and the climate control is easy to use. It's all just very intuitive and well-designed interior space. So that's what you need to know with that. Funky shifter down here. Really nice high-res reverse camera, 360 camera, good visibility all the way around. Practically, you're not really conceding anything with this 5N. It is a very nice vehicle to live with on a daily basis, and someone who isn't even performance-minded could drive this no problem as a daily. It's not too twitchy, too fast, too sensitive. The steering's got a lot of weight to it. That's probably partially due to those wider 275 width tires, but it is a very nice vehicle to just drive around casually. It's about as comfortable as a regular Hyundai Ioniq in normal drive mode, and it just sometimes makes funny engine noises. Listen to that. I guess something to drown out that rear hatch rattle, huh? It's insanely fast. We've also been testing an AMG GT63 4-door E-Performance this week, which has 800 horsepower and over 1,000 pound-feet of torque. Guess which vehicle feels faster? This one. Insanely fast. In the real world, I don't think much would beat you off the line in this car. All right, so I will admit, I've lived with this car, I've driven it for the last 4 days, and I still don't really know what's going on with all the drive modes here. It's still confusing the heck out of me. I pretty much just keep pressing buttons until I reach my desired drive mode. So you have N Custom 1, and then there should be an N Custom 2, but I just press this button, but N Custom 1 still shows up down there. And then I get my engine noise, which is good. Then if I want to go back to EV mode, I just press that again. And then if I want to put it in sport mode, I press this. So again, you've got 3 buttons here to just kind of press randomly to achieve what you want, and it seems to do the job. This is definitely the messiest drive mode configuration that I have driven and experienced in a Hyundai N car. They could simplify this just a little bit. There's so much adjustability here, it's almost a bit overwhelming. All right, so right now we're in N Custom 1. Steering is in Comfort. Let's go into our N mode and we'll just show you guys what's going on. So motors in Sport Plus, ELSD is in Sport Plus, ESC is in Sport, steering is in Normal, suspension is in Sport. Let's throw it into a corner, see how it does. A little bit of safe understeer, but we're pulling around a G right now. That's pretty darn good. Insanely fast. And there was a bit of a shift lurch there too. First gear is very tall. There's red line. It stops accelerating. Such a weird experience. The safety warning system is interesting. It's like a little vibrator in the steering wheel going on back there. Then you can turn all this off and just have EV sounds, which is the way I prefer it. Little mini turn signal cameras there. That's always nice to have. Just the most insane acceleration. There's so much responsiveness here. You can one pedal drive this by pulling the paddles, adjust your level of regen there. And then there's N-Grin Boost. Oh, you get 10 seconds of that, not 20 seconds. And you get another 40 horsepower. That's fun. Let's try that again. Ready? If you ever launched a really fast all-wheel drive car, you get kind of dizzy on that initial acceleration. I don't usually get dizzy like that at 50 miles an hour. All right, so it's really fast. It's got split personalities. You can do the comfort daily driving thing here, no problem. You can take it to a racetrack and probably obliterate everything else at speed until the battery runs out. But then you can charge it really fast. It's the EV for enthusiasts. Finally, something that I think a lot of driving purists would be interested in. It is heavy. You do feel some of the weight going on here. But it feels well calibrated, well developed. You can adjust the balance of everything, from torque distribution to power. Let's go back and play around with our engine noise a little bit more. wouldn't mind a little bit more bite from those brakes. On the throttle, nice and neutral. Yeah, it's weird. It takes some getting used to, especially hitting red line in an EV. It would be nice if it just kind of auto upshifted. But it's interesting. It's different. You can turn those burbles off too. There's a lot of adjustability there with the N active sound. It's also interesting when you roll into the throttle on this, there's like a 2-stage sound from the electric motor. Interior feels pretty tight, other than the rear hatch rattle. Ride quality is great. Suspension seems very well tuned in all of its drive modes. Right now we're in Sport. I can easily daily in this mode, no problem. Eco mode, the throttle tuning is kind of inconsistent. There isn't really anyone home for the first 2 inches of travel, and then you start to get a little bit of power, and then it's pretty limited at speed. Normal's a pretty good drive mode to drive around in on a daily basis. Sport lets you have a bit more fun with better throttle response. It's very quiet at speed. On the highway, cruising, there's very little wind noise, very little road noise. These tires are excellent. For being a high-performance Pirelli, all that noise-canceling technology is really working for you. Highway driving assist, adaptive cruise control, those systems all seem to work pretty well. The steering assist has been a little bit wonky this week, not perfectly centering us in the lines, and it's been airing towards the right side of the lane, so I just kind of keep my hands on things. But this does have a pretty good highway driving assistance system. You can adjust 5-mile-an-hour increments, but it does take some time for you to hold that button to make it do so. It will even auto lane change for you. I think you have to keep your hand on the wheel or something, but it does take its sweet time. It's not one of those fast auto lane change systems. There you go. CarPlay is wireless. That's been an easy, seamless connection this week. No problems there. What about the sound system? This sounds great. It's a nice audio system. Yeah, lots of deceleration off throttle, and it's immediate. This car feels so responsive and just kind of strong and stout and solid. A lot of G-forces in all directions going on here. Brake pedal feel is good, nice and firm. Yeah. Sneak in a quick launch. See how hard this is to do. Wow. No drama. Just gets the job done. There is a weird droning sound at speeds below 25 miles an hour, and I assume it's just to let pedestrians know that you're an EV and you want to make some type of noise at parking lot and neighborhood speeds, but it's not the most pleasant noise. I'll show you guys what that sounds like here in this parking lot. Sounds like a loud fan going on. All right, let's try turning some things off. See what happens. Put this on level 1 regen, so we'll actually use the brakes. Yeah, brake pedal bite is not good. Gosh, the handling is just sublime though. It's so balanced on throttle. Roll into it here, going past this semi-truck with N-Grin boost engaged. Ready? A lot of cars out there make 600 horsepower, but not a lot of them make 600 horsepower all at once, on demand. High performance sound effects. I don't know if it's coming through on camera or not, but the little jerks you get between shifts are really interesting. like in a torque converter or a dual clutch transmission, they kind of increase depending on how much throttle you have. You can also lug the motor. 2,000 RPM, 8th gear. It's a silly thing, but I love it. It is fun. It's a way to fill a gap created by electric vehicles and make this a more engaging experience. Look at that. All right, so the Ioniq 5N. This is an insane EV performance car. Some things about this I like, and I think Hyundai's done a very good job with the suspension tuning, the electric motor tuning, the way this powers out of a corner. It feels really good as kind of a 8 or 9/10ths car. I think if you really start to approach that limit, the weight is going to factor in, and it's going to be a little bit of a handful. To drive on a daily basis, no complaints. It's fantastic. It's comfortable. It's got a great interior space. That trunk rattle can be fixed at the dealer. It seems to be efficient too. Like, range is very accurate. Of course, you drive this a little bit harder, you're going to get a little less range, but on a daily basis, this is estimating a little over 220 miles of range on a full charge, and I have no doubts that it will do that. 800-volt charging architecture makes this a viable long-distance driver, a road tripper. You could take this to the racetrack, and as long as there's a charging solution at the track, you could do a few sessions in this and have a blast. The drive modes, some of the settings here are too complicated. There are too many requirements to engage some of the modes. I think most of them work here, like this end torque distribution with traction control off. So we can now adjust our torque distribution, make this front wheel drive, make it rear wheel drive with a bit of a bias. Let's try a 30-70 split. And race and drift optimizer, that's full rear wheel drive. You know, you've got your custom 1, custom 2 settings, and it seems like you just select those by pressing these buttons a bunch of times. Overall, it's a different experience from an EV performance car. And for the most part, it seems to be pretty well done and pretty well finished. I think some things could use a bit more refinement and development, but honestly, this is also going to be one of those cars that you probably can't fully enjoy or appreciate until you take it out onto a racetrack, because the limits are just so high, you can't really explore them on the street. It is a cool looking car. All right, let's drive around a little bit more. But those are pretty much my thoughts on the Ioniq 5N. I love that the Hyundai N division actually has developed and built this car, and that they've made it as good as they have. You can tell a lot of thought has gone into the development here. Okay, the engine sounds a little bit silly, it's a bit gimmicky, but you can turn all that off. It's not like you have to live with that. Right now we're at a 90% rear torque distribution. It rotates beautifully. That's cool. Tesla did that with a Model 3 Performance, and I've been waiting for someone else to do that too. Turning radius isn't the best. Let's try another launch control. I wonder what this would be like on a set of winter tires in the snow as an electric rally car. I bet that would be pretty cool. All right, well, there you go. We'll post some more thoughts on this if we get a chance to take it out onto a racetrack. But until then, some pretty impressive stuff here from Hyundai. I like what they've done here. It's a nice car to live with. It's fun. It's a fun EV. And I think we'll just end on that note. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.